Yo, it's Coach Patty, the grammar coach, and today we're talking about active and passive voice. Let's get active.
Why don't you explain this to me like I am an 8-year-old?
Active voice is when your subject is doing your verb. So for example, Coach Patty is holding her dog, or Coach Patty is holding Sunny. So there we have the subject doing the verb. What you do not want is your object leading the sentence. So if I said Sunny is being held by Coach Patty, that would be a bad sentence. We don't want to make those long is being held by kind of sentence constructions. We want to talk exactly, oh my baby, oh my dog baby. We want to talk exactly about what we mean. So keep your subject in the front, follow it up with your verb, and if you need a direct object, you can have a direct object. So let me explain to you why that's bad. So if I have Sunny over here is being held, and I put a period there, and I never said by Coach Patty, then Sunny is being held is a sentence without a subject. What are clauses? Independent clauses have subjects and predicates. If you have Sunny is being held, Sunny's your object of that sentence. Held or hold is going to be your verb. There is no subject. That's a bad sentence. And even if you did say Sunny is being held by Coach Patterson, by Coach Patterson is a prepositional phrase. In that weird, funky construction, somehow I became an object too, and there's two objects in the sentence, still no subject. That's why we avoid passive voice, and we want to speak actively. Like, I love Sunny, not Sunny's being loved by me.
Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5?
So we've talked about subjects and predicates, and we know that sentences should have both a subject and a predicate to be like real bona fide sentences. But it gets a little trickier than that. To be a good sentence, it needs to be written in active voice. Let's talk about active voice. Active voice shows the subject of the sentence is doing the action of the sentence. Here it is important to remember that grammatically, so in grammar, the subject of the sentence isn't who or what the sentence is about. It's not the topic. The subject of the sentence is who is performing the action of the verb. So if Coach Patty gave Sunny a bone, in that sentence, I, Coach Patty, am the subject of the sentence because I'm the one performing the action. I'm the one giving the bone. I'm the one who's performing the action of the verb give. So the sentence, Coach Patty gave Sunny a bone, is in active voice because it shows the subject of the sentence is doing the action. Okay? Active voice shows the subject of the sentence is doing the action. So active voice is good. Passive voice, not so much. Passive voice happens when the subject of the sentence is being acted upon or kind of hanging out in the backside instead of doing the action of the verb. For example, Sunny was given a bone by Coach Patty, or the bone was given to Sunny by Coach Patty. In both of those examples, it's passive voice because instead of hearing about what the subject was actively doing, instead of that being like a subject-verb team in which those go together, the subject hangs out at the end and is passively doing the action of the verb. That sentence with the passive voice was poor writing because the subject and the verb don't form a strong subject-verb team, which is what makes for a good sentence. As a rule, you should always try to write an active voice when you can, especially in writing, because active voice is stronger, less wordy, and less chunky. In the sentence, Coach Patty gave Sunny the bone, it gets right to the point and it keeps the subject in control and it keeps that team together of Coach Patty and gives. While in the sentence, Sunny was given a bone by Coach Patty, it adds unnecessary words and can potentially confuse the reader, which you don't want. You don't want any kind of misunderstanding between you and your reader. But wait, aren't there exceptions to every rule? Like you can just never, ever talk in passive voice? What? Of course there are exceptions to every rule. Sometimes you may need to talk in passive voice, and here are some examples why. If you don't know the subject, you may need to use passive voice. For example, if we didn't know who gave Sonny the bone, or if the refrigerator door was left open, but we don't know who did it. So we could say Sonny was given the bone, which is passive voice, or the refrigerator door was left open, which is passive voice. However, you would still have a stronger, better sentence if you used a pronoun or some other word to convey who the subject was. Instead, you could say, I don't know who left the refrigerator door open, or someone gave Sonny the bone. So both of those sentences are still stronger in active voice versus just kind of leaving it at, I don't know who the subject is, and writing in passive voice. Which brings us to reason 2. Sometimes using passive voice helps to downplay the responsibility of the subject. If you take the subject out, maybe they won't be blamed for whatever happened. For example, if you say the room didn't get cleaned, it doesn't directly connect you to the sentence the same way the sentence, I didn't clean the room would. But no one is fooled. Avoid passive voice and take responsibility for your actions. The last and really the best reason to use passive voice is whenever the object or whoever is receiving the action of the verb deserves more attention in the sentence than the subject or whoever is doing the action of the verb. Using passive voice can help you put a spotlight on whatever you think is most important in that sentence. For example, if someone wins a prestigious award, we typically care more about who is receiving the award than who is giving the award. So, instead of saying the Norwegian Nobel Committee awarded the Nobel Peace Prize to Nelson Mandela, we highlight the recipient by saying Nelson Mandela was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. But once again, you could still avoid using passive voice altogether and write a stronger sentence by keeping the subject-verb team together. And saying Nelson Mandela won the Nobel Peace Prize. Easy. Quick review! You should write strong, concise sentences where the subject is performing the action of the verb. In other words, you should write in active voice. If your teacher has ever griped at you about using be verbs, he or she is probably trying to get you to avoid writing in passive voice, because passive voice needs those be verbs, that was, that were, to make those awkward sentence constructions in which the subject follows the action of the verb. Speak in active voice as often as possible and avoid passive voice to form strong sentences. If you think you need to speak in passive voice because you don't know the subject or you're avoiding the subject, just think a little harder and make a dope active voice sentence. I promise it'll be better in the long run. Coach Patty out.